another December, and here we have with another Christmas movie each year. And boy, that, let me tell you, a movie called Violent Night. I was kind of anticipating it the first time I got my eyes into it. When I saw it, it was kind of like, wow, this is what a movie this is. Um, because the first thing that came into my mind when I saw the trailer is that this is, remember in Ernest Saves Christmas, there is this kind of like scene in which the Santa Claus is against a movie that a very violent movie with swearing and all these things and because he says that this is not like the Christmas spirit and he kind of was against it. Well, I think that's the idea that probably came out from this violent night. So, but still, I was kind of oh, well, is technically Die Hard, but taking place during Christmas, and that instead of John McClaine, is Santa Claus. Those were kind of like my first impression, but still, I was so eager to watch that movie. I'll say. I know that this video is a little bit late from the day from the date of release, but trust me that usually December is some of the busiest days of the year, mostly because you have to go places, you make some appointments here and there, and well, yeah, well, you just do your best. But don't worry, I still gonna make myself some time to probably watch Avatar, The Way of the Water. Although I'm not exactly very keen and very skeptical, considering that the movie is gonna be like 3 hours according to sources. Oh man, James Cameron, why you gonna give us a lot of why'd you give us too much content but yet make us so tiring? Okay, but that's just me. And here I am, I'm gonna talk about that. I finally went to see Silent Night after all the after, how can I say, after all this. And you know what? I was really entertained. It's really kind of like one of those popcorn flicks that you just go there, shut your mind, and you just feel entertained, even though it's basically Santa Claus technically beating the shit out of criminals. If this kind of course doesn't sound very jolly in a world of, that we just want, in a holiday that we just want to spread out, how can I say peace on earth and all these things, you're not gonna get this kind of movie. But either way, man, that I was kind of like really, really entertained, and so much that before I start recording about this, the day was kind of so cold that I just took a nap, and I was just still thinking how I'm gonna explain this movie, and finally I did this, and here I am. I'm gonna talk to you about Violent Night, which basically the synopsis is that we have Santa Claus played by David Harbour, who is technically kind of like the cynical, washed-out, tired Santa Claus that he's kind of he's basically kind of like not feeling the joy of giving Christmas in a cynical way, because nowadays people buy their presents in Amazon, or they just want cash or video games, and he's like, ugh, these people. So he just down his sorrows by going to pubs, drink some beer, or stealing beer from other people. That's kind of like hilarious. Until he gets into this house, into this rich house, and by sheer coincidence, that same mansion which has a rich, where they live kind of like this rich family with riches and everything. That house is invaded by these group of mercenaries who they just want to open a big vault full of money, and all these criminals are basically code name, with Christmas names like kind of like Frosty or Chestnut and something like that. The leader himself, played by John Leguizamo, he calls himself Scrooge, and boy, that he's a big Scrooge. I'll get to that. So basically, Santa Claus, he's like, oh shit, I don't want to be here. But of course, he changes his mind when he realizes that in that house there is this little girl, who she basically is the only genuine believer in Santa Claus, and she basically has this radio at which how can I say? She by pure coincidence she managed to communicate with him, kind of like John McClaine with the father from Family Matters. I forgot the name of the guy, and the guy's like, you know what? This girl doesn't deserve to have this horrible Christmas with this guy. Time to kick some ass, or in the case of the movie, it's like time to kick some anus. This is pretty much just a synopsis, and it's as straightforward as it is. It's Santa Claus trying to save a family from criminals, and and the pacing of the story is just as good as it is if you are into how can I say, action movies, and it does its job. Don't expect kind of like big high art in it, but you're gonna go with the typical tropes that you find in these kind of like action movies. Sometimes they spout out, how can I say, some corny one-liner, sometimes related to Christmas, or sometimes how can I say, the movie kind of like drags on a little bit in the middle, and you're like, oh my god, keep going on all these things. But I think that one of the key things that I like about it is technically the acting that it goes. First of all, let's talk about David Harbour himself as Santa Claus, in which he does his job as a kind of like this wash shop Santa that, like I said, he's a little bit cynical. He just wasted himself in order to down his sorrows, that that almost the Christmas spirit and the believability of Santa Claus is kind of weighing down on modern times, which is kind of understandable. So much that he just drink beer. Sometimes there's kind of like a moment in which he vomits sky high, and he even pees while in the air with his sleigh and the reindeers. And I actually kind of like that. At first, he just liked that. He wasn't supposed to be involved into the whole mess, but the movie finds itself an excuse for that, in which the reindeers technically just leave him behind, and he's like, oh man, I have to do it. And he has kind of like this arc in which he basically found no joy on his work until he finds out, some solace when he talks with the little girl named Trudy Lightstone. She's played by Leah Brady, who basically, in his list, she is kind of like the only nice girl that it is. And let me talk to you about this girl. The girl who played Trudy Lightstone, played by Leah Brady. She is genuinely good. I like that they managed this child actor very well to make her genuinely caring, and she basically is kind of like the only thing that is worth saving compared to the other family members, which I'll get to, and because she genuinely believes in Santa Claus in this kind of like despairing times. And she does have a genuine Christmas spirit. so much that even though the other family members are kind of like, I don't know, uh, and and she's the most honest, and I like how the performance that they gave her to it. It just kind of remind me that yesterday I watched I watched the John Hughes Miracle on 34th Street, the one with Mara Wilson, and I I mostly begin to. The only thing I will say is that how much I wasn't very keen on Mara Wilson's acting and when she was a child actor, because I think that she was kind of like ungenuine, cute and fabricated cuteness so much that I didn't like her acting. And compared to the Leah Brady's in that movie, she actually does a more genuine performance to make a girl with more genuine feelings. There's no fabricated cuteness, but you kind of care for that character. That's pretty much I have to say. Other actors that I could also talk to you about the other families. Man, that this family kind of like they kind of suck. It's like the family. It's kind of like another family. If you saw that movie named Krampus, these family, man, they're kind of like they hate each other, and they're kind of more for the riches of the grandma, because the movie takes place in the mansion that belongs to the grandmother, and the grandmother is kind of like this no-nonsense, cynical no nonsense attitude, that she kind of like the matriarch who say like, okay, I'm the head businesswoman, so everyone is kind of like just there they don't care about me, they just care about my money. Although she does have a little bit of genuine love to the little girl, because she's the only one that actually shows some genuine love instead of just for the money. And she actually kind of also despises her children. We have the girl's father, who is kind of a little bit of a he doesn't take much of his time with her, because he has kind of like this big plan that I'm not gonna exactly reveal you what it is. And he also has kind of like a rocky relationship with I think it is his ex-wife. And just a little bit of a side note, not because I'm against or something like that. It's another one of those biracial marriages that, to be fair, these guys do. They're more believable and do better than the one in Strange World. Actually, it's a little bit more how can I say, it's a little bit kind of like they just act that it could be any couple, but the little girl's big wish is that she wants her parents, to make up, because they always kind of like bicker each other. There's also kind of like the other family, because there's also the woman who she's also for the riches, and he has her husband, who is kind of like this big time action actor, but he's also very selfish. They're all kind of like selfish, and they just want to impress the grandma. And they also have a child who, I swear to God, he is like Justin Bieber. But this kid he's kind of like a YouTuber. He's always on the smartphone, making vlogs, kind of like me, and like I am doing, even though that child is more young. And I always remember that when the criminal just comes into the house and disconnect all the communications and Wi-Fi, the kid's biggest complaint is like, "Grandma, your Wi-Fi is shit." And during the whole movie, when these couple are taking hostages, they are pointing each other at, saying that, "Hey, kill this guy! No, kill him! No, kill him!" or something like that. So they're kind of like this people that you just want to slap them, except for the little girl. And of course, there is what's an action movie without the villains? Like I said, the head villain is played by John Leguizamo, and And man, that I never expected to see him since because the last time I see him, he's kind of like in the menu. And in this case, I almost didn't recognize John Leguizamo because 1 week ago I watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, and man, the guy gained a little bit some weight compared to that movie. No offense, but either way, I think they did a good job with how John Leguizamo kind of like portrays his code name, which is Scrooge. And he is kind of like the biggest Scrooge if he turns into a deadly mercenary who is up for money and blood. And he always kind of like comes up saying a lot of things about how much he hates Christmas. And there is a backstory with him on why he hates it. And you find that this guy has no redemption for, to redeem himself. Yeah, because sometimes, yeah, Christmas, you can forgive people for all their doings, but no, this guy and the other half kind of like no redemption whatsoever. You really hate this guy, and you just can't wait for Santa Claus, to put him into his place. And from this point, and of course we got the other criminals, of course, that they're just there to kind of become the father for Santa Claus. Although the movie kind of stretches itself out almost in a little bit more into the halfway point, in which extra people come for kind of Santa Claus to kick ass. And the best way you can describe it is that it pulls out a Die Hard 2. That, considering that this movie is a little bit like Die Hard in one way or another. Other cinematography, I will say that it's kind of like basic run-of-the-mill, standard from action movie, but it does its job well done. No fancy special effects, but they do go on with with a lot of blood, violence, and gore. And let me tell you, this movie is not exactly kind of like the biggest violent gory movie that there is, but there is some moments that it kind of like, oh my god, it's really violent. For example, there is kind of like one of the key points that this movie has is that the little girl, she recently watched Home Alone. And there is kind of like a moment in which she creates booby traps that are significantly inspired by Home Alone. But the biggest twist that they had is that what will happen if these booby traps they don't sugarcoat it. It's not used like a John Hughes cartoon. No, you actually feel the pain and the real injuries that these booby traps does. And of course, you're gonna get kind of like the usual, Santa Claus using a sledgehammer to beat people, or there's one creative that he uses Christmas ornaments to burn someone into a crisp. And of course, the one that is kind of a little bit unbelievable in my opinion, but still kick-ass, is Santa Claus, killing people with a sharp candy cane. I still have one that I needed to use to post for the thumbnail. I'm gonna eat it later. So this is kind of like a little bit of kind of like a fair warning, but still, you just go there, for the sake of watching an action flick. And like I said, the movie also has some heart in it. Like I said, the movie's heart, it mostly dwells on the relationship between Santa Claus and the little girl, because this is where Santa Claus kind of finds himself kind of like some kind of purpose on doing all these things, despite that not many people believe. And this kind of makes him feel that, well, there's still some people that still believes in him, and they find it makes the whole thing kind of like more joyful, and because, well, that's kind of like the Christmas spirit that there is. Funny thing, apart from Miracle on 34th Street with John Hughes that I saw yesterday, I also saw Elf, which kind of have a little bit of that same messaging about believing in Santa Claus. Wait a minute, Miracle on 34th Street also have that message. Man, I've been seeing a lot of Christmas movies this year. And for this one is probably one of the most actiony that I have seen, at least to this point. I don't know if there are a new. No, I don't think that there's no theatrical this Christmas movie. There is. That kind of reminds me that there is indeed another movie that is kind of like that. I think it was called the Batman, not Batman, or something like that. I haven't seen that one, just in case. You know what? That kind of reminded me that while I was in the movie theater, I saw the trailer of Cocaine Bear, and man, that was kind of like, it's gonna be a dark comedy. But overall, this is my opinion on Violent Night. It is kind of like a mild recommendation if you are kind of like open-minded to violent movies. This one, you're gonna have a fun time, I'll say. If you like movies like Die Hard 2, or The Batman, you're gonna like this one. It has some good humor. Sometimes it can drag on a little bit in later moments, but it has this fair. It is technically a 2-hour long movie, or an hour and a half long, because I always lose track because how can I say, the AMC theaters, when you go there, they give you kind of like a half-hour worth of trailers compared to other movie theaters, in which they give you only 15 or something like that. But anyways, have a Merry Christmas, have a good night, even though it's still not Christmas, and by the way, you still believe in Santa Claus, because you can believe that Santa Claus can kick ass. Unless you're watching the Santa Claus version of Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas.